Roxanne Vega was late again. Not by much, only 6 minutes and a war crime or two, but in a galaxy governed by hyper-precise aliens whose scheduled breathing cycles. 6 minutes might as well have been a felony. She walked down the chrome-slick corridor of the Galactic Embassy of Unity, sipping lukewarm coffee from a chipped ceramic mug that read, "Come to the dark side, we have espresso." Her boots clicked defiantly on the polished floor. Her jacket, a weathered black leather relic older than half the council, swung behind her like a cape. She hummed under her breath. Something American. Something loud. Bullet with butterfly wings. Security drones floated alongside her, like overly polite mosquitoes. They scanned her, beeped confusedly, then trailed off as if realizing there were better life choices. In room Thedema, 26 species sat in a circle of judgment, or, as they called it, diplomacy. Bioluminescent blobs pulsed next to 12-eyed reptiles. 6-armed sandfolk blinked in silence. All of them watched the human as she strolled in, without so much as a bow. "You are late, Ambassador Vega," hissed the Eltari Prime Delegate, whose head looked like someone had deep-fried a jellyfish in silver. Roxanne sipped. Fashionably. Or, as we call it on Earth, on time with flavor. A dozen translators hiccuped simultaneously, trying to decode sarcasm. The Eltari narrowed his eyes. "Your presence is disruptive. That's why I'm here," she said sweetly, dropping into her seat with an audible creak. Behind the smugness, she scanned the room. Something felt off. Too quiet, even for this crew of space tax attorneys and galactic prudes. The Growlin weren't giggling into their mind clouds. The Thravik weren't chewing wires. Everyone was poised. Still. She sipped again. Her fingers tightened around the mug. Across the table, the Croc ambassador tapped something under the table with a claw. Just a twitch. Enough. Roxanne stood, slowly. "You know, before we begin, I'd like to say something." The Eltari raised a limp hand. "This council. I know. Rules. Gags. Protocols." She looked around. Her voice dropped. "But see, humans have this thing we do before we get murdered. We monologue." There was a mechanical click. The lights dimmed. A soft whir overhead. A laser that danced across her chest. Roxanne set the mug down on the table like she was done with it. "You should have tried harder." Then the first shot rang out. The beam hit her just above the heart, if she had one in the usual place. Her body jerked. Another blast to the shoulder. The Eltari flinched. 5 more bursts followed, hitting with surgical precision. Left lung, gut, lower spine, neck, and finally her side. A tremor passed through her, but she stayed standing a second too long. Then, like a tree, she fell. Silence clung to the room. Even the air vents seemed to hold their breath. The Growlin made a wet chirping sound. Target eliminated. No resurrection trace detected. Clean work. The Eltari exhaled through gills. Dispose of her. 2 android guards stepped forward, each made of smooth white alloy and glowing joints. They dragged Roxanne's body toward the back corridor like discarded trash. Nobody spoke. The death of a human diplomat wasn't a scandal. It was a release. She had been the rogue ember in a room built of dry protocol. Her death meant peace. Or so they thought. In the maintenance corridor behind the council chamber, the androids dropped her onto a gurney. One scanned her for residual life signs. A blinking blue that hesitated, then faded. The second android reached for a neural shredder, executing tissue erasure for security compliance. Then the lights flickered. A long pause. The android paused mid-motion. System anomaly. The gurney creaked. Her finger twitched. Then her hand. And with the slow, inevitable force of a resurrection denied logic or consent, Roxanne Vega sat up. She exhaled. "Okay, that hurt." The android raised its shredder. She caught its wrist mid-swing, crushed it between her fingers, and twisted the entire forearm until it screeched. Sparks flew. The second android reached for its shock lance. She punched it through the neck before it could scream. The hall went red. Somewhere above them, the embassy security grid activated. Doors slammed shut Emergency klaxons wailed, and dozens of council members stared up at the ceiling as muffled metal-on-metal carnage echoed below. The Eltari delegate stood rigid. "It cannot be her. She was clinically dead," hissed a Brolaxian analyst. "Then explain why our cameras show her stealing an assault baton and smiling about it." Inside the maintenance corridor, Roxanne grunted, yanking a plasma baton from the downed android's holster. "That's for shooting me in my favorite jacket." She picked up her mug, now cracked but intact, and tossed it into a pocket with reverence. Her lip was split. Her eyes were steel. 7 shots, huh? She muttered. "Good effort." She turned a corner and found herself facing 3 elite guards in black composite armor, weapons raised. "Ambassador Vega," the lead bot intoned. "Stand down or be deatomized." She tilted her head. "You ever seen Die Hard?" "What?" She fired the baton. It ricocheted off a wall, struck the left guard in the power core, causing a cascade failure. Before the others could react, she somersaulted into them, spun the baton like a bow staff, and shattered one visor with a crunch that felt like poetic justice. The last guard fled. She didn't chase. Not yet. Instead, she ducked into stairwell, tore off the scorched portion of her jacket sleeve, and pulled a slim disc from beneath the lining. It blinked once. "Green. Still transmitting," she muttered. "Good girl." On the other side of the galaxy, in a bunker beneath Earth's moon, a bald man in a hoodie slammed a hand on the desk. "She's alive." She actually pulled it off. A woman nearby choked on her donut. "We gave her a prototype Phoenix core as a prank." "Prank or prophecy," he grinned. "Vega's about to break galactic diplomacy," with a side of snark. Back in the embassy, Roxanne reached the upper levels. Her path was blocked by a retinal scanner and biometric lock. She stared at it, then kicked the scanner panel until it sparked. "Security breach detected." The system chirped. "Present credentials." She raised both middle fingers. "Credentials denied." "Fine." She jammed the plasma baton into the control housing and fried the panel. The door hissed open. Inside, the VIP surveillance hub buzzed with artificial calm. 3 alien staffers froze as she entered. One dropped his datapad. Another wet himself audibly. She pointed at the monitor. "Replay footage. Assassination attempt. Council chamber. No authorization." The technician began. She kicked his chair out from under him, caught the pad, and tapped the replay button with manicured precision. The scene played again. 7 shots. Her body collapsing. She hit pause. "You all thought I'd stay down." Your heart stopped," stammered a jelly-limbed analyst. "I've got 3. Technically. Long story." She stared at the playback again. Her face stilled mid-fall. A frame frozen between defiance and death. She whispered, "This time, I remember everything." Her hand hovered over the delete button, then dropped. "No," she said. "They need to see what happens when you mess with the weird girl from Earth." She turned. One of the aliens whimpered. "What are you going to do?" She smiled. "I'm going to pay a visit to the nice folks running the Eltari training facility on Clivar 7. That's a restricted military zone." Even better. As she left, the technician reached for the comm panel. She turned and said, "Without even looking, I wouldn't." He didn't. Hours later, in the high towers of Eltari Command, news reached the generals. Vega was alive. She'd walked out of the Galactic Embassy alone, armor-stripped, blood still drying, and whistling the Ghostbusters theme. Eltari Prime nearly fainted. "She will destabilize the entire treaty system." The intelligence director replied grimly, "Sir, I don't think she cares." Back on her ship, a battered Earth diplomatic cruiser covered in bumper stickers and swear words, Roxanne sat in the pilot's chair, bandaged, bruised, and smiling. She fired up the engines. A message pinged from Earth. "Do not engage. Return for debrief." She typed back. Too late. They poked the wrong bear. And with that, she slipped into the stars, humming No Easy Way Out. There was no funeral for Roxanne Vega. There was just the slow, quiet dread spreading through alien military councils as they realized she didn't die. She got mad. And she was coming. The cruiser groaned through slipstream like a beast chewing gravel. Roxanne leaned against the pilot's seat with a cold pack on her ribs and a paper straw between her teeth. No medbay, no AI co-pilot. Just her and a beat-up console blinking warnings like a Christmas tree wired by lunatics. Clive R7, she muttered. 3 moons, 7 teeth, and no one smiles. The planet loomed ahead. Gray, militarized, cratered. The kind of place that thought camouflage was a personality. According to council records, it housed one of the Eltari's top tactical training enclaves, which was bureaucratic code for where we build the monsters. And monsters needed mothers. She was here to teach them one. She didn't dock. That would be polite. Instead, she crash-landed on a flat stretch of dirt beside the base perimeter wall, killing 3 motion sensors and probably the base gardener's will to live. The cruiser hissed as she stepped out, shotgun slung over one shoulder, a half-finished cup of vending machine cocoa in her hand. Wind swept across the training yard. Automated turrets rotated. Lock-on lasers blinked red. She held up the cocoa. Easy. I'm just delivering caffeine and justice. The guns fired. She dove sideways as bolts scorched the ground, cocoa flying. The mug exploded. Oh, now you've done it. She sprang up, tore the hood from a burned-out sensor tower, and flung it at the nearest turret. It jammed. She sprinted, boots hammering against gravel, slipping between shadow and fire, until she reached the wall's edge. There, hidden by design, was a service hatch no taller than a raccoon. She grinned. God bless lazy contractors. One kick, and she was in. Inside, the base was quiet. Too quiet. Not cinematic quiet, the kind of quiet where you felt watched by things that didn't blink. The corridors pulsed with blue light, the floor panels humming with trapped energy. Alien signage flashed unreadable symbols. Her boots echoed as she walked, softly at first. Listening. Every sense alert. Behind a glass partition, 2 recruits watched her on a screen, wide-eyed. Is that her? She tore the door off a diplomatic complex. She's got a coffee thermos made of Kevlar. What do we do? They did nothing. She moved on. Deeper into the complex, the temperature dropped. A faint, industrial chill filled the air. The training center's layout was surgical, unforgiving. Rooms of discipline, of pain turned into curriculum. This wasn't a school. It was a forge. She stopped at a long viewing hall overlooking the main floor. Below, a dozen recruits stood in a circle around a hologram of a human. It was cartoonish, small-headed, wide-eyed, clumsy. The instructor, a tall Altari in black combat wrap, paced. This, he said, is your enemy. Unpredictable, illogical, dangerous. They built weapons for love and machines for war. You will learn to anticipate chaos. You will. The door exploded. Smoke rolled through the hall. Roxanne stepped through it, backlit by sparks and screaming alarms. She held a crowbar in one hand. In the other, her jacket hung from her shoulders, smoking slightly. The instructor reached for his sidearm. She was faster. The crowbar slammed against his wrist. His gun flew. She caught it midair, twisted, and aimed it straight at the hologram projector. One shot. The fake human shattered into pixel dust. Lesson 1, she said. You don't teach children how to fight wolves with a stuffed animal. Chaos broke out. The cadets scattered, half of them running, the other half freezing in terrified awe. The instructor groaned on the floor, clutching his wrist. She pointed the gun at him. You want to talk about humans? Let's talk. He wheezed. You shouldn't be alive. Yeah, that's what your sniper said. Right before I disassembled him with a lunch tray. Why are you here? To see what you're building. To see if I should burn it down. A siren howled overhead. Metal doors slammed shut along every hallway. Red light bathed the floor like the inside of a sirloin steak. You're surrounded, he said. Security will end you. She tilted her head. Maybe. But first, play me something. He blinked. What? Your training room playlist. You've got something in the system, right? Let's set the mood. The instructor hesitated. Or, she added, I could choose something. She tapped her communicator. A beat started, low, familiar, bass-heavy. Backstreet's Back, all right. His eyes went wide. From every speaker across the base, the boy band's anthem echoed. She danced once, just to emphasize how little she cared about their rules. Then she fired. The training room erupted into gunfire, flip tables, and flying boots. The Galactic Senate convened beneath the Vault of Harmony, a structure designed to awe civilizations into civility. Sunlight refracted through diamond glass, casting rainbow shards across the assembly. But there was no peace here, only panic. "We are witnessing a destabilization event," roared High Executor Feinkar of the Eltari. "A single human, a diplomat, has breached one of our most secure military facilities." Across the chamber, Ambassador Thrinal of the Vesk clicked his mandibles. She played human-mating music while disabling training personnel. A dozen species shuddered in their own ways. "Did she kill them?" asked the Grievian delegate. "No," said the Eltari. "She beat them." Repeatedly. One recruit filed a trauma report about her quoting something called "Die Hard" while throwing him into a plasma tank. A collective groan filled the air. Somewhere, a bureaucratic jellyfish fainted. From the shadows of the Earth delegation box, Acting Ambassador Roland Gray stirred his tea. He wore a navy blue suit and a tired smile, like a man who knew he was winning and wasn't sure why. "If I may," he said smoothly, "we warned you about Roxanne Vega. You said she was eccentric. I said she was Earth's insurance policy for when diplomacy failed." He took a sip. "Congratulations. You cashed the policy." The Eltari slammed a three-fingered fist on his console. "This is an act of war." "Then perhaps," Roland said, "you should not have shot her 7 times and buried her in your basement." The Senate erupted into shouts, guttural, buzzing, warbled sounds of 100 tongues in synchronized outrage. Above them, the vault shimmered, trying and failing to project calm. On a screen behind the central podium, grainy footage played. Roxanne bursting into a training arena, wielding a crowbar and quoting Independence Day while setting off an EMP grenade with the phrase, "Welcome to Earth." Every delegate watched it. Again. "She's not a soldier," muttered the Varnak Minister of Threat Analysis. "She's a cultural weapon." Roland swirled his tea. "Now you're getting it." Meanwhile, on a backwater station orbiting Ganissa 9, Roxanne sat in a stolen Eltari scout cruiser eating a protein bar shaped like a grenade. She was bleeding from the elbow, humming Toto's Africa, and going through downloaded blueprints with all the intensity of someone solving a bar fight with duct tape. Her ship AI buzzed. "Query," it chirped. "Why has your recent behavior registered a 97% spike in anti-diplomatic protocol?" "Because, Pixie," she said, licking chocolate off her thumb, "sometimes peace is earned with bullets, not brunch. Would you like a playlist?" "Hit me." The cabin filled with a distorted guitar intro of Smells Like Teen Spirit. Roxanne grinned. "Now let's make the galaxy smell like fear." Back at the Senate, factions formed in whispers. The younger empires admired Earth's audacity. The older ones debated how quickly to eliminate the threat. But all agreed on one point. Roxanne Vega had become the most dangerous woman in the known universe, and she'd done it while singing karaoke. She wasn't done. Roxanne's next target wasn't a facility. It was a file. She slipped through a relay hub orbiting the Yolani Trade Corps, one of the busiest communication nexuses in known space, dressed as a repair technician with a sarcastic badge that read, "Hello, I fix stupid." The disguise fooled no one. It just confused everyone long enough. Inside, servers whirred with 500 billion data points. She walked to the access point, whistling, and bypassed its encryption using a toaster she'd modified back on Earth. No one questioned it. No one wanted to. She found the file, Operation Empathy Clone. Her eyes narrowed. According to it, the Eltari had quietly replaced 2 human diplomats with synthetic approximations designed to mimic emotion, without true understanding. These replacements weren't just lifelike, they were dangerous. Optimized to negotiate away freedoms Earth would never concede. And worst of all, they'd almost worked. She traced the program's origin to the Senate itself. A shadow vote, buried in procedural fluff. Every name she saw got burned into memory. every supporting comment, every cowardly abstention. She copied the list and smiled. The galaxy's mistake hadn't been underestimating Earth. It had been assuming Earth played by their rules. In a distant data chamber of the Velik Hive, 5 miles underground, a soft ping alerted a technician drone. Unauthorized breach, the screen read. Then, human music detected. Then, Toast DXC has initiated. Before the drone could react, every terminal in the hive began playing Ice Ice Baby at full volume. The queen of the hive, who had only ever heard classical string patterns composed by pheromones, declared war without knowing who she was mad at. Back in the Senate, Roland stood again. My fellow delegates, Earth proposes a solution. You mean surrender, the Eltari snapped. No, Roland said. We mean a ceasefire. In exchange, we request full records of all operations involving human likeness replacements and an apology signed by every voting species. You can't be serious. She's already in your files. She's already in your war planning grid. She's rewritten your AI response templates. If she wanted to, she could broadcast your secret invasion plans over galactic radio while beatboxing. The Grievian delegate hissed, "You bluff." At that exact moment, every public screen on the Senate walls lit up. Roxanne's face appeared, bruised, lit by console light. "Hi, sweethearts," she said. "Just thought I'd drop in." Gasps. "I found your little training videos. Cute. I also found your synthetic empathy bots. Not so cute. Tell you what, I've deleted the worst of it. You're welcome." She leaned closer to the camera. "But if anyone sends another assassin bot to Earth, I'm bringing the full 80s with me. I'm talking Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Willis, and Kurt frickin' Russell in a trench coat." She sipped something. "And yes, I still have my coffee." The screen went black. Silence. The Eltari glared at Roland. "We demand you recall her immediately." Roland smiled politely. "She doesn't work for us anymore." "You disavow her?" "No. We upgraded her status. She's now officially a freelance emotional recalibration specialist." "You invented a new title." "Yes," Roland said, "and we're rather proud of it." That night, across 17 planets, bootleg footage of Roxanne's Senate broadcast went viral. Alien teenagers quoted her threats like mantras. Resistance cells started forming with her face as a patch. On some worlds, her image was declared a Class 5 destabilizing icon. Earth's social feeds? Memes. Lots of them. One had her holding a crowbar with the caption, "She came. She saw. She gave no frags." Roxanne watched the chaos from a refueling station in orbit around a black star, laughing softly. Her arm was bandaged. Her hair was a mess. She looked like a war zone, and she'd never felt more like herself. Pixie chirped. "Where to next?" "Eltari Prime," she said. "That is highly inadvisable. I'm not here for advice. I'm here for closure." Outside the ship, stars wheeled in silence. Back in the Senate chamber, fear was no longer theoretical. Delegates now whispered her name like a curse, like a storm you hope skips your coast. She had become more than a diplomat. She was a concept, an idea, and ideas couldn't be shot 7 times. Eltari Prime pulsed beneath its violet sun like a heart made of concrete and secrets. Everything on the planet radiated control, rigid spires rising from steel ground, surveillance towers that blinked like cold gods, and walls designed not to keep enemies out, but to keep fear in. Roxanne Vega stepped onto its soil wearing a patched-up tactical coat, mismatched gloves, and a pair of sunglasses with one cracked lens. She didn't care about appearances anymore. She cared about the mission, and the mission was closure. Her stolen cruiser disintegrated into space behind her, rigged to crash itself into a junk moon. Let them chase ghosts. She had boots on the ground and a message to deliver. One that couldn't be encrypted. One that had to be felt. The main gates of the Eltari High Council compound loomed ahead. 2 guards flanked the threshold, tall and sleek in mirrored armor. They stood still, silent, as if trained to ignore earthquakes. Roxanne strode up and offered no identification. One guard raised his arm. Unauthorized presence. State name and purpose. Roxanne Vega, she said calmly, brushing dust from her coat. Purpose? Retaliatory peace. The guards blinked. The left one hesitated. You are believed to be. I get that a lot, she interrupted, and drove her knee into his chest. The second reached for his weapon, but she already had his baton. 2 strikes, shoulder, knee. He dropped. She dragged both into the shadow of a marble pillar, stole an access card, and didn't look back. Inside, the compound's corridors gleamed with the sterilized soullessness of every empire that believed order was safety. She walked past statues of Eltari war philosophers, through security gates that tried and failed to read her biometrics. She knew where she was going. The grand rotunda of deliberation. The room had been constructed for spectacle. Tall ceilings framed in white stone. Floating platforms for each regional faction. Suspended translation orbs. And at the far end, the 12 speakers of the High Council sat on elevated thrones, wrapped in ceremonial cloth, breathing synchronized puffs of bioluminescent gas. It was silent until it wasn't. She kicked the doors open. Guards shouted. Sirens chirped. Council members leapt from their pedestals like children caught cheating on a test. Roxanne raised both hands, a baton in one, and a small box in the other. This is not a weapon, she said, nodding at the box. It's worse. Speaker Zinther rose, flaring his gills. You are in violation of sovereign code. You are unauthorized. You are. Yeah, she muttered. So are you. Article 73, subsection 9. Unauthorized impersonation of a diplomatic voice in galactic affairs via synthetic proxies. Silence, broken only by the faint hum of 1,000 recorders going live. The council panicked. You can't prove. I can. I did. You installed empathy bots. You voted to replace the real with programmable. I got the files. I broadcasted the memo. And now the whole damn galaxy is listening. Someone from the medical pit reached for an alert panel. She turned slightly. Touch that, and I upload the dancing senator holograms you've been keeping off the net. You know the ones. Even Speaker Zinther flinched. Now, Roxanne continued, stepping into the center of the chamber. I'm not here to overthrow you. I'm not even here to kill you. Lies. Her pulse betrayed her. Her breath hitched at the edge of fury. I'm here to ask a question. She held up the box and pressed a button. A hologram sprang to life. It was grainy footage of her own body, riddled with 7 energy shots, lying sprawled across the embassy floor. I want to know, she said, voice barely above a whisper, which one of you signed the kill order? I want them to say it, to own it. Or so help me. I will drop this entire building into the ocean using only chewing gum and a mixtape. The lights flickered. Power rerouted. Speaker Jull turned toward Zinther. She has the backing of Earth. No, Roxanne corrected. I am Earth right now. Earth with a crowbar and a grudge. One of the junior council members cracked. It was a test. A vote of risk mitigation. We thought she'd only be injured. You fired 7 times. We assumed redundancy. The lights dimmed further. Something thudded in the distance. Then meowed. Everyone froze. What was that? Zinther asked. Roxanne smiled. Back up. Dozens of small, soft-footed shapes slipped from the ceiling vents and upper ducts. Tabby cats. Black ones. Orange-striped. All wearing tiny vests labeled property of Earth Emotional Intelligence Division. One leapt onto a desk. Another perched beside a tactical console and began knocking over precious artifacts with terrifying intent. You sent cats, a horrified security chief gasped. They're therapeutic weapons, she said. Each one loaded with quantum tracker bombs and weaponized purring. Do not resist. Do not attempt to pet unless invited. A gray feline named Chairman Meow began shedding on Speaker Jull's ceremonial robes. Chaos unfurled like music. Security bots tried to intervene, only to have their sensors scrambled by purring frequencies tuned to disrupt artificial logic. One guard was taken down by a Siamese lying in his path, tripping him so hard he flew headfirst into a wall and muttered "worth it" before passing out. In the center, Roxanne stood still. She wanted revenge. But revenge was cheap. She wanted understanding. Every species has its myths, she said. The Altari worship order. Earth? We worship freedom. You thought by cutting down one voice, you'd silence the whole. But we're a planet of loud mouths, of stubborn daughters, of survivors who watched our skies for gods and became our own. A long pause. Speaker Zinther stepped forward. What do you want from us? A vote, she said. He scoffed. You think we will yield to threats from domestic mammals and mixed apes? I think you'll do anything to get them out of your air vents. He turned purple, the color of resigned fury. A long, grinding moment passed. Then the speakers began casting votes. One by one, some reluctant, some eager, but all unanimous in the end. The vote passed. Earth would not only receive full transparency into diplomatic impersonation records, but all humans would be granted permanent veto rights in future empathy simulation programs. The chamber deflated. Power restored. The cats dispersed. The guards remained unconscious or deeply traumatized. As she turned to leave, a voice stopped her. Roxanne. She turned. Zinther stood stiffly. There's a reason we targeted you. You are chaos, fire, irreverence. She met his gaze. I'm also the reason there's still hope for a galaxy that thinks too much and feels too little. She walked away. At the port, Roland Gray waited with a thermos. You did it, he said, offering her the drink. She took it, sipped. No sugar. You've had enough sweetness for one war. They boarded a small, nondescript shuttle together. Pixie chimed in. Destination. Anywhere with waffles, Roxanne said. As the ship lifted off, the Galactic Council issued a new classification. Roxanne Vega, emotional containment risk, level, irredeemable. Earth responded with a memo. Correction, level, icon. Above Altari Prime, where order had once ruled without question, stars blinked. Somewhere deep in the folds of bureaucracy and fear, cats still shed. And one woman, stitched together by coffee, chaos, and the sheer will of Earth's rage, leaned back in her chair and smiled. Because sometimes diplomacy was a scalpel, and sometimes it was a sledgehammer wrapped in 90s nostalgia and carried by a woman who never stayed dead.